I left the house empty, and that was the first thing I truly felt when I realized they actually couldn't afford 2 daughters. They came back a week after their dream vacation and saw that the living room was gutted, no couch, no TV, not even the microwave I bought 3 years ago with my first big bonus. Mom screamed so loud I could hear her voice over the phone from the neighbor, and it was the sweetest sound I had heard in all my 30 years. They thought I would just swallow another humiliation, as I always did, but this time they were wrong. While they were packing bikinis for my younger sister, I was packing something else entirely. I was planning to take back my life and everything I had invested in their existence. My father, Richard, always loved to say that I was our rock. It sounded proud, but in reality, it meant I was the one who stayed home, covered the bills, cooked the meals, and bought half the things standing in that house. I am Olivia. 30 years old. Since I started working, which was very early, I automatically became the family's unofficial sponsor. Not because I was asked, but because it was necessary. Dad was constantly changing jobs, his hours were cut. Mom, Martha, worked part-time, and all her money went towards her hobbies. My younger sister, Doris, she's 24, was the golden child. She always needed new clothes, sponsorship for endless creative projects, and, of course, attention. And me? I just paid for the electricity they carelessly wasted while Doris watched reality shows in the living room on my TV. About 3 weeks ago, on a Friday evening, when I was once again sitting on the couch reviewing work emails, a rent reminder, a utility notice, a polite thank you from the boss for staying late again, I heard my mom's voice. It was bright, excited, full of the enthusiasm she rarely showed when it came to my own accomplishments. They sent the confirmation, Doris. Ocean view room, breakfast buffet, even a spa credit. She's going to be ecstatic. I walked out of the kitchen and stood in the doorway. Mom was waving printed papers, Doris was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone and grinning at swimsuit ads. Dad was just nodding, pretending to care about details he had already forgotten. I had that familiar, sickening feeling in my stomach. It always came when I knew something unfair was about to happen, but I would be expected to swallow it. Hey, what's going on? I asked, forcing a smile. Mom turned around, as if she had just noticed my existence. Oh, Olivia, we're finalizing the trip booking. It's a big deal, you know, after everything that's been going on. Your sister really needs this break. A break from what? Her carefree life? I frowned. Doris didn't even work. My father shot me a warning look. Olivia, don't make it a drama, he said, in that sharp tone I had heard my whole life. Don't you dare make this about you. The truth tumbled out of my mother's mouth a few days later at dinner. We were eating off plates I bought with my first grown-up paycheck. Mom put down her fork and sighed dramatically, there's something we need to explain about the trip. I already knew. My skin buzzed with dread. We wanted to take both of you, she said, looking at her plate, but we just can't afford 2 tickets this time. Prices went up, the resort fees are crazy, and Dad's hours were cut. We had to make a choice. I stared at her. And you chose her? Mom flinched but didn't deny it. We promised Doris months ago. She's been looking forward to this for so long. You're constantly busy with work anyway, Olivia. You hate crowds, you know that. You wouldn't enjoy it the same way she will. Dad interjected, annoyed, don't turn this into drama, Olivia. It's just a vacation. There will be other trips. Will there? I laughed bitterly. Because I don't remember being invited to the last one. Or the one before that. Doris looked uncomfortable, but not enough to give up the trip. Olivia, come on, don't make them feel bad. You know how things are. We can't always do everything together. My jaw clenched. It wasn't about the trip. It was about the pattern. Birthdays where her gifts were thoughtful, and mine were last minute. Events where they cheered for her from the stands and forgot to ask how my day went. Nights when I stayed late at work to cover the electricity bill while she begged for money to go out. I live here too, I said quietly, but the words cracked like ice. I help pay for this house, but when it's time for something fun, I suddenly don't exist. My mother's expression hardened. That's not fair. We appreciate you. Do you? I shot back. Because every time something good happens, it's magically for her. Every sacrifice, that's me. Every bill, I'm there. But this vacation, this big, special thing, sorry, Olivia, maybe next time. Silence settled over the table. For once, no one had a quick answer. Dad finally sighed, you're overreacting. You're an adult. You know life isn't always equal. Your sister is younger. She still needs these experiences. There it was. The same old excuse, dressed up as wisdom, younger. Needs more. I needed you too, I replied, my voice now trembling. I needed you when I was working double shifts instead of going to parties. When I was the one putting groceries on the table while you took her shopping. I needed you, and I kept being the reliable one you could ignore because you knew I wouldn't explode. They looked everywhere but at me, at their plates, the clock, the TV. That hurt more than the words. It told me exactly where I ranked. That night, I lay awake, replaying every small moment that suddenly didn't feel so small. They had trained me to be okay with being invisible. Then they threw the vacation in my face as if I wouldn't notice the pattern. Only this time, I did. And the anger didn't fade overnight, as it usually did. It grew. It sharpened. It started turning into something else. Something that looked a lot like a plan. If they can't afford 2 tickets, they can't afford 2 houses either. The next week was the strangest one I'd ever lived through in that house. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, but not a sad one, I was a ghost with a clipboard. They were too preoccupied with their countdown to the trip to notice the shift in my silence. They thought I was pouting, doing the usual Olivia is being dramatic again routine. Let them think that. It gave me the space I needed to finalize the plan. The whole thing had to happen quickly, within this 1 month. That was the only way it would be effective. The atmosphere at home was sickeningly cheerful. Mom, Martha, started talking constantly about the resort's amenities, the buffet, and the perfect Instagram spots. She'd leave magazines open on the kitchen counter, the counter I paid for, with pictures of turquoise water and white sand. Doris, the golden child, spent every evening online, showing Mom's swimsuit options and accessories. I'd watch them sometimes from the doorway, leaning against the frame, forcing myself to look bored, maybe even slightly jealous, when in reality, I felt a cold, surgical clarity. They kept using the word budget, as if that one word justified leaving me behind. We're trying to stick to a tight budget for the next few months, Olivia, Dad, Richard, would say, usually right after he'd signed off on another one of Doris's urgent Amazon orders for beach gear. But you understand, you always help out. Of course I understand, I'd reply, my voice flat. What they didn't know was that every time they said that, I mentally ticked off another item I was going to take, the brand new, high-efficiency washing machine, check, the coffee maker that cost a month's worth of my bus fare, check, the brand of dishes in the cabinet, check. I didn't need to steal anything. It was all legally, provably mine. I had receipts for everything. I didn't collect these receipts on purpose to execute a spectacular act of revenge. I had kept them out of necessity, out of a quiet, deep-seated distrust. For years, every time I'd bought a major household item, the new fridge when the old one died, the living room rug to cover the stain from one of Doris's parties, the entire entertainment center, I paid with my card and then filed the receipts in a labeled folder in the bottom drawer of my desk. I think, subconsciously, I always knew I was merely lending my possessions to a space where I was only a temporary guest, despite being the one funding the long-term stay. The emotional toll of this charade was immense. During the day, I was the capable, steady Olivia at the cafe, taking on extra shifts. At night, I was just the shadow daughter, measuring the worth of my own home in receipts. I felt this sharp, physical pang of loneliness whenever I heard their excited voices planning something I wasn't part of. It wasn't about the beach, it was about the deliberate exclusion, the message, you are only valuable when you are providing something. One evening, Doris walked into my room without knocking, looking for a travel adapter she thought I owned. She stopped when she saw me at my desk. I was just staring at the wall, but I quickly closed my laptop. "Hey, what's up?" she asked, her voice high and casual. "You okay? You seem quiet." "Just stressed about work," I lied easily. "Double shifts are exhausting." She shrugged, not really looking at me. "Yeah, I get that. Listen, Mom said to remind you to water the garden while we're gone. And if the mail piles up, just shove it under the door." Her casual assumption of my ongoing servitude hit me like a physical blow. She just expected me to pick up the slack while they were gone, without even a thank you. "Got it," I said, meeting her eyes. "Have a great time, Doris." "Really? You deserve it." She smiled, a genuine, blinding smile that made my stomach turn. "Thanks, Liv. I'll bring you something nice from the gift shop, okay? A keychain or something." That's all I was worth, a keychain from a gift shop she wouldn't even think about buying for me until the last 5 minutes of their vacation. After she left, I felt the last lingering threads of guilt or doubt snap. This wasn't about being petty, this was about self-preservation. I took out my folder and spent an hour cross-referencing my bank statements with the receipts, building a meticulous inventory. Not just the big things, but the good silverware, the set of expensive wine glasses, the heavy-duty blender. If I paid for it, it was coming with me. The plan was simple, the trip was a week long. I had already booked a small, unfurnished apartment near the beach, far enough away from their neighborhood that they couldn't just walk over. The lease started the day after they left. I made the down payment online, using the savings I had initially earmarked to pay off their old credit card debt. That money was mine now. 2 days before their departure, I quietly called a moving company. "I need a truck and 2 guys for a quick job," I told the scheduler. "It's a 1-bedroom load, mostly furniture and appliances. No one else will be home." "When?" "The day after tomorrow. Early morning." It was all happening so fast. 1 month. The anger and the sudden decisive action had compressed years of indecision into a few weeks. They would leave on Tuesday. The movers would arrive Wednesday. By the time they landed back on Sunday, the girl they had always treated like background noise would be gone for good. And the precious family home would finally reflect the emptiness I had always felt inside it. The clock was ticking. Now I just had to survive the goodbye. They have no idea what they're walking away from, or, more accurately, what they're leaving me alone to take. The morning they left for the airport, the house felt like a cheap theater set for a play I was sick of watching. Suitcases lined up by the front door, laughter echoing off the walls, Doris posing for photos in her expensive new airport outfit while Mom, Martha, reminded her to tag the resort on Instagram. I stood near the kitchen, nursing a mug of coffee I didn't want, watching them act as if this was all perfectly normal. My heart was pounding, not with fear, but with a wild, cold excitement. This was the point of no return. I had to maintain the mask of the dutiful, slightly resentful older daughter one last time. Mom hugged me quickly, a perfunctory gesture, like checking off an item on a mental list. "Don't forget to water the plants, okay? And if any packages arrive, just put them in the hallway. We'll bring you something nice from the gift shop." The words landed like miniature insults. A keychain. That was my reward for keeping their lives functional. I managed a strained smile. "Sure. Have fun." Dad, Richard, patted my shoulder. "We'll only be gone a week, Liv. Try to relax for once." Then they were gone. The front door closed with a cheerful, definitive slam. Their laughter faded down the driveway, followed by the sound of the car engine receding into the neighborhood traffic. The silence that followed was heavy, absolute, and profoundly satisfying. I put the mug down. I walked into the living room and surveyed the space. The couch, the TV, the coffee table, the expensive rug underfoot, all things I had bought over the years because, as Mom always said, we can't afford to replace that right now, Olivia, and you're the one with the stable job. I walked through the rest of the house, the microwave, the heavy-duty blender, the good set of towels in the bathroom, the brand-new bookshelf in the den. Every single item was a monument to their neglect and my hidden resentment. I went to my room, pulled the folder of receipts from the bottom drawer, and spread it on my bed. This wasn't just proof of payment, it was a physical testament to every double shift, every sacrificed weekend, every ignored birthday. Then, the conflict began, but it wasn't with them, it was with myself. I had planned this meticulously, but now that the moment was here, a tiny, annoying voice of duty tried to whisper doubt. Are you really going to do this? This is harsh. They are still your parents. I shut that voice down immediately, recalling Mom's face when she said, "We just can't afford 2 tickets." I remembered the look in Doris's eyes, not of gratitude, but of entitlement, when she talked about the spa credit. My heart hardened. I was done being the financial shield for their favoritism. I called the moving company and confirmed the 8 a.m. slot for the next morning. The next day, Wednesday, the truck pulled up to the curb. It felt theatrical, almost unreal. For a moment, I panicked, imagining a nosy neighbor texting Mom, but then I remembered, they were hours away, sipping airport lattes and posting their first vacation mode stories. They wouldn't know until it was too late. I let the movers in and, armed with my folder, began pointing things out with a cold, almost surgical clarity that surprised even me. The couch, the TV, that bookshelf, these bar stools, the microwave, the coffee maker, the dishes in this cabinet, the silverware, the rug under the table. All of that goes. One of the movers, a young guy named Jeremy, raised an eyebrow. You sure? That's, like, a whole living room and half a kitchen. I held up my folder of receipts. Positive. I paid for all of it myself. Every single item. We worked for hours. The emptiness spread from room to room like a slow, deliberate storm. The living room went first, stripped bare except for the ancient, ugly recliner Dad had brought from his bachelor days and refused to throw out. The kitchen lost its shine, piece by carefully logged piece, leaving behind mismatched, scratched-up leftovers that weren't worth the cost of my time. Every time the movers asked, "This too?" I checked the folder, nodded, and watched another part of my silent revenge click into place. I was intentionally brutal. I left some things, the hideous lamp Mom loved, the chipped side table Doris insisted on keeping, the discount mirror they bought when I first moved back home. I wanted them to see the stark difference between what I had provided and what they had chosen to keep for themselves. I wanted the contrast to scream at them louder than I ever could. When the last box was loaded onto the truck, I walked through the house one final time. It felt hollow, but not sad. It felt honest. For the first time, the house reflected how I had always felt inside it, like I was the one filling the empty spaces, and no one would ever notice until I stopped. At my new, small apartment near the beach, I watched as the movers carried everything in, transforming the blank space into something warm and undeniably mine, my couch, my books, my dishes, my TV mounted on a wall that no one else had a claim to. I didn't leave a note. No explanation, no apology. They had always acted like my contributions didn't matter. Now, they were about to find out exactly how much they had taken for granted. I went to bed that night, not with guilt, but with a feeling of profound, clean relief. My family was hours away, basking in the sun and pretending their life was perfect. I was home, in a space that was entirely my own, knowing that the confrontation was coming, and I was ready for the fallout. They had chosen the vacation over me. Now, they would come home to a house that was as empty as their commitment to me. The quiet in my new apartment was intense, almost painful, for the first few days. It was a silence that didn't demand I cook dinner or pay a utility bill, it just allowed me to exist. I picked up extra shifts at the cafe, not because I had to, but because I wanted to feel the steady weight of my own earning power, money that was purely for my savings, labeled, Future Olivia Fund. The week was a blur of unpacking boxes and waiting for the inevitable blast radius. I knew the moment would come when their plane landed and they pulled into the driveway. On Sunday evening, my phone started buzzing relentlessly. It began with Rachel, my best friend who lived 2 houses down from them. She didn't call, she sent a picture. It was shaky and taken from a distance, but the image was crystal clear. Mom, Martha, standing on the porch, keys still in hand, her mouth hanging open in a silent, perfect "Oh Dad," Richard, was behind her, fists clenched, and Doris was frozen halfway up the steps. Through the open doorway, I could see it, the gaping, echoing emptiness. No couch. No TV. No rug. Just the sad, faded impression of where things used to be. "Girl," Rachel texted, followed by a torrent of emojis. "They are losing it." I heard your mom scream from my kitchen. My heart didn't pound with fear, but with something wild and intensely electric. I stared at the photo for a long, satisfying moment, then flipped my phone face down. The call started immediately after, first Mom, then Dad, then a flood of angry, confused, and panicked messages from Doris. I didn't pick up. I let it all go to voicemail. I cooked dinner in my own kitchen, sat on my reclaimed couch, and watched the TV, the same one they were probably accusing me of stealing right about now. The messages piled up, Mom's voice breaking with tears, Dad's voice shouting about betrayal, Doris sending a stream of frantic texts asking, "What did you do?" I didn't respond. Not that night, not the next morning. On Monday afternoon, there was a knock at my door. 3 sharp, angry bangs. I knew that knock. My stomach flipped, but I forced myself to breathe. This was the moment. I walked across the room, opened the door, and there they were. My parents pushed past me without waiting to be invited, their eyes darting around my small apartment. Mom's gaze landed on the TV I had just been watching. "There it is," she shrieked. "I knew it. You took everything, Olivia. How could you?" Dad's face was red. "This is insane. We come back from vacation, and the house is stripped. What is wrong with you?" I calmly shut the door and leaned against it. "What's wrong with me?" "You mean, what's wrong with me taking my own stuff?" Mom spun around. "Your own stuff? Those things are for the family. You can't just empty the house because you're jealous of a trip." I walked over to my small dining table, pulled out the folder of receipts, and let it slap down on the surface. "Sit," I said. "You want to talk about what's for the family? Let's start with who actually paid for it." They didn't sit, but they didn't leave either. I flipped open the folder. The couch, bought with my bonus last year. I tapped the paper. The TV, my tax refund, split into 12 months of payments. The microwave, my card. The dishes, my first paycheck at the cafe. The rug I saved for 3 months. Do you remember any of that, or did you just assume it magically appeared because the house needed it? Mom's mouth opened and closed like she was searching for the right lie and couldn't find one fast enough. "We were going to pay you back," she said weakly. "We always meant to." "You've been saying that for 5 years, I countered, without raising my voice. 5 years. In the meantime, every time the bills were tight, who did you come to? Me. Every time something broke? Me. Every time you wanted to wait until things got better? Me again. But when it was time for something special, something fun, something you'd remember forever, that went to her." Doris stepped forward, eyes glossy, not with tears, but with embarrassment. "Olivia, okay, but this is extreme. You left the house empty. People are talking already. You made our family look crazy." Her words hit me hard. "Oh, now you care about how things look." "Where was that energy?" I asked, the intensity in my voice rising, "when you were posting vacation selfies while I was sitting at home being told you couldn't afford 2 tickets? Dad slammed his fist on my new, small table. "Enough. This is childish. You want to move out, fine. You're an adult. But taking everything, that's theft. I picked up the stack of receipts and waved them. Go ahead. Call the police. Show them the paperwork. Tell them your daughter stole the couch she paid for. See how that goes. He glared at me, but he didn't reach for his phone. We all knew he wouldn't. He didn't want anyone else to know just how much they'd leaned on me. Silence settled over the room, deadly and profound. This was the turning point. In some families, this would be where tears, apologies, and promises to change would soften everything. That's not what happened here. Mom finally sank into one of my chairs, defeated. We were so worried when we came home, she said. We thought something bad happened to you. And then we see that you were worried about the furniture. I wasn't worried about the furniture, I corrected. I was worried about me. When was the last time you were really worried about me, Mom? Not just about whether I'd cover the power bill, but about how I was actually doing? She didn't answer. Dad stared at the floor. I'm not coming back, I said finally, the words cutting through the tension. This isn't a phase. This isn't a tantrum. I'm done being the backup daughter who holds everything together so you can pretend the golden child is the only one who matters. Dad rubbed his forehead. So what? That's it? You just cut us off over a vacation? I shook my head slowly. No. Over years of being invisible. Over you telling me to my face that you couldn't afford to treat me like I mattered as much as her. Over you assuming I'd keep pouring money and energy into a house where I was just a shadow. My mother's shoulders shook. We made mistakes, she whispered. We didn't realize you felt this way. We were trying our best. Your best wasn't good enough, I said quietly. And now you get to live with it. They left a few minutes later, not with slammed doors, but with heavy, defeated footsteps and stunned silence. Doris was the last one out. At the doorway, she turned back. I'll call you later, she mumbled. Don't, I replied. Not unless you're ready to talk about what you've done, too. She swallowed and left. I locked the door behind them and leaned my forehead against it, my heart racing. I had expected to feel guilt. I didn't. I felt clean, like I'd finally told the truth out loud, and the world hadn't ended. It had just rearranged itself around new boundaries that I should have set a long time ago. The house was empty, but for the first time in years, my heart wasn't. The aftermath was brutal, practical, and swift. I had expected anger, what I got was public exposure and collapse. In a small beachfront town, drama spreads faster than the tide. Within days, people at the cafe were whispering about that family whose daughter moved out and emptied the house. My revenge wasn't just the empty rooms, it was making them confront the reality of their choices in the daylight. Rachel, my neighbor and friend, filled in the details. Your mom was yelling in the driveway about betrayal, your dad was talking about lawyers, she told me on my break. But then the neighbors started asking, didn't Olivia pay for most of that stuff? You should have seen their faces. They hadn't just lost furniture, they had lost the stable image they'd spent years projecting. People were asking why their hardworking older daughter had quietly moved out and taken everything she owned. Why their house looked robbed while they were on vacation. The cracks were visible now. My parents were forced to live with the consequences. Rachel said the house looked sad, bare floors, echoing kitchen, the kind of emptiness you couldn't fix with a scented candle. Dad complained loudly about the expense of replacement. We didn't realize how much she'd bought, he kept saying, as if that was some kind of defense, not a confession. Mom, in turn, snapped at him one day in the yard, loud enough for Rachel to overhear, if you hadn't always run to Olivia for money, we wouldn't be in this mess. For once, they weren't blaming me, they were blaming each other. The fallout hit Doris differently. She had returned expecting to bask in the glow of her vacation photos. Instead, she walked into a half-empty house, constant arguing, and whispers at her job about being the pampered favorite. A girl she worked with asked her point blank, "Is it true your family left your sister home because you couldn't afford 2 tickets?" Doris, the confident, had no good answer. The pedestal had been kicked out from under her. While they scrambled, my life accelerated. I was offered the assistant manager promotion at the cafe, a raise, more control, and more proof that when I invested in myself instead of in people who didn't see my worth, things grew. But the real turning point came when Doris finally texted, "Can we meet?" Not at the house. Somewhere neutral. I agreed. The next day, she was waiting at the beachside diner, looking smaller and more tired than I'd ever seen her. No makeup, no pretense. "I'm not here to guilt you," she began, fiddling with a napkin. I need to understand. I know the vacation was messed up, but Mom said you were fine with it." She always said that about everything. "It's easier for them than admitting they were using me," I said, cold and direct. "I grew up thinking that was normal," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "That you liked being the responsible one, that you didn't care about the trips or the attention. They always said, Olivia's different, she doesn't need all that. So I stopped asking why you weren't included." "I wanted to be," I said. "I just learned early that wanting didn't matter. If I didn't pick up the slack, no one would. So I did. And then they decided that meant I didn't deserve anything extra. Just more work." She looked up at me, shame in her eyes. "When we came back and saw the house, I was mad at you at first. But then I started adding things up. Olivia, I had no idea how much you'd been paying for. They made it sound like it was voluntary." "Well, now you know," I said. "Congratulations. The curtain's been pulled back." She swallowed hard. "I can't defend what they did. I don't want to lose you because of them. I'm sorry, Olivia, for every time I didn't notice, or didn't ask, or enjoyed something I knew you weren't invited to and told myself, that's just how it is. I was selfish. I liked being the favorite." That honesty hit me harder than any anger. It was ugly, real, and exactly what I needed to hear. "You benefited," I said slowly. "Even if you didn't create the system, you enjoyed it." "I know," she whispered. "And I hate that I did. When Mom said they could only afford 1 ticket, I should have refused to go without you." "I didn't. I wanted you to feel it," I admitted. "The shock, the loss, the embarrassment. Because you've been protected from consequences your whole life." "I get that now," she said. "I really do." "So what now?" "Now," I said, "you decide who you want to be. Their golden child who pretends this is all my fault. Or the person who finally tells them the truth about what they've done." She met my eyes. "I'll try," she said firmly. "I'll stand up for you. Even if they hate it." A month passed before I saw my parents again. They finally texted, begging to meet. I agreed to a quiet cafe on neutral territory. They looked worn down, older. Mom's eyes were puffy, Dad's shoulders were slumped. "We owe you an apology," Dad said, the words stiff. "We handled things badly." "Which things?" I asked. "The vacation? The years before it? The way you treated me like a walking bank account?" "All of it," Mom whispered. We didn't see you." "Not really. We saw what you did for us, not who you were." She confessed that they spoiled Doris because they felt guilty about how hard it was when I was a kid. "Instead of making it up to you, you used me to finance your guilt," I finished for her. "We want a chance to do better," Dad pleaded. "Here's what I'm willing to offer," I said. "I will stay in contact. I might answer calls sometimes. But I'm not your safety net anymore. If you want a relationship with me, it's on equal footing, respect or nothing. And if you want proof you're changing, go to family therapy. Both of you. Commit to it. Learn why you thought it was okay to treat your daughter like this." They hesitated, but ultimately agreed. "If that's what it takes," Mom whispered. When we stood to leave, Mom reached out to hug me. I gently stepped back. "Not yet," I said. "Maybe one day." Walking back to my apartment, I realized the core truth: my revenge wasn't the empty rooms or the gossip. My real revenge was this: I took my life back. I made them see the hole I'd been filling all along. I curled up on my couch, the same one that had once sat in their living room, now firmly and permanently mine. I thought about the girl who heard, "We can't afford to take two," and almost accepted it. And then I thought about the woman I was now, someone who set boundaries and knew her worth. Whether they ever fully changed or not, I knew one thing for sure: I would never let anyone make me feel like the extra in my own story again. The greatest emptiness was never in the house, it was in the roles we played. Now the set is bare, and we all have to figure out who we are without the script.